in case you forgot. All right, guys, let's get started. So, what the heck are we looking at here?
Cells.
Cells, right? We're looking at cells. What, like the question right there in the red, what characteristics are you noticing here?
The green.
Cell fibers.
There's things.
So they're green. They're green. What else? What else? What about what are we? What kind of structures are we looking at?
Like small.
They look like little squares, right? What else? What else is in those squares? What
Black
Little circles.
Cells.
Little circles,
Cells.
dots.
Cell
All good.
nucleus.
Right, all good, all good. So now let's contain our excitement. All right, so let's look at these guys.
Go.
So what do we notice about these guys? So what about the structure? What about the structure we noticing?
There's more.
So they're pink. Speak of smaller. So we got smaller. Okay. What about that top one?
They're stretched out.
They're stretched out. They look stretched out, right? So this guys is actually a human muscle fiber cell. So that's what your muscles look like when you look under a microscope. Pretty cool, right? And so what? How are these different than the first ones we looked at?
Those are probably.
Yeah. These ones are a little more random looking, right? The other ones look like really functional, like really strict lines. Look really, like. I mean, let's just draw squares. Let's just draw some squares, draw some lines, right? So what you guys were looking at the first time was just your regular plant cell. And so you see that, and now we're looking at animal cells. And so you see how different they are, right? Functionally, they're exactly the same, but I mean, they look so much different. And then if you think of animals and plants, right? Like, what do we notice about plants compared to humans, for example? They're green.
Fragile.
They're fragile, but what about a tree? They're pretty strong. They're pretty rigid, right? If you touch your skin, it's kind of soft, right?
After you.
It kind of moves around. Leo, you got something good?
I got something.
I got something good to say? Darn it, I thought you did. What's up, Praveen?
Oh, I want to add on to what you said about what's different between humans and plants.
All right, let's hear it.
That they have different light sources. Like they use sunlight and water.
You're right. Plants do use sunlight for their food compared to humans. But yeah, so plants are rigid. They need this rigid structure to stand up straight. Like we use bones to stand us up straight. They don't have that kind of internal structure. So now we're going into the fun stuff. What is a cell? So if just for example, if I put it in red, probably means I want you to know it. Okay? So you can either take notes or do whatever best works for you to put that to memory. Honestly, these ones are pretty self-explanatory, right? So we're talking about a smallest unit of life, like Miguel brought up, like our daily entry tasks. That's what a cell is. That's a simple, right? That's a pretty simple definition, guys. So now, everything that we know that is living is made up of cells. All right, thanks for helping out Christian there. So when we think of all living things, I mean that's a pretty wide range, right? We got really small things, we got really big things, and I mean they all look completely different. So cells must be doing something differently in everybody, right? But the simplest way to break it down is organisms are either unicellular or multicellular. Now, do you think there are more organisms that are multicellular or unicellular on the planet? Unicellular? Why? Yeah, you're right. There's bacteria. Now, like Rosie said, unicellular organisms are like bacteria and archaea, which are just small organisms that we can sometimes not even see, but they make up billions, trillions. all over the planet. Yet multicellular organisms, like all animals, plants, the biomass of those takes up most of the plant. So biomass means they take up the most energy, more or less. So what else? So we got size. Oh yeah, what's up, Nate?
I was gonna ask you, because you said that you put it in red, but I can't see it.
Oh, you're colorblind?
So I'm not sure if it's
Well,
red.
I will make sure to let everybody know what is in red and what's not. All right, man. So color blindness is a X-linked recessive trait. That's pretty cool. All right, so now we're talking about how big are these things? How big do we think these things are?
You're like microscopic.
I would say definitely microscopic. So does anybody know how big a micrometer is?
No.
Really small.
Like 1,000th of a millimeter or something?
Yeah, man, it is. The average cell is, if you were to take your pen or pencil and make a dot on your paper, that's the average size of the cell. So, I mean, obviously that's why it took us forever to even realize they existed. So now we're going to talk about, this is boring stuff, right? Takeaway, unicellular, multicellular, made up of all living things. The rest of this stuff is just for fun. So the shape, they're mostly cuboidal. Does anybody tell me what cuboidal means?
What?
Anybody know what cuboidal means? Yeah, it's like a cube, it's like a square. And then actually most plant cells are like roughly 13 flat sides, but they're still kind of a circle. So in the spherical circle, but cells also, some specialized cells have the ability to morph into any shape they need to. And I put an example there, white blood cells. Why do you think white blood cells would need the ability to change shape? Nathan.
So don't you can fight off the bacteria, the virus.
Yeah. So white blood cells are a huge component of our immune system. Technically, they are our immune system. There's a lot of things that factor into that. But so they need to be able to change shapes to either block viruses from, replicating, or from bacteria that's harming us. Good stuff like that. So now here's just a few examples. So Euglena is a unicellular algae species. So that's what a unicellular organism looks like. So take a look at that. I mean, it just looks like a blob, right? I mean, all this green stuff in there, that's food. That's food and something called chloroplasts, which take in sunlight for food. And then you look at, plants. Anybody know what kind of tree that is?
A green tree.
You're not wrong.
Evergreen?
They're all over.
Fir, pine?
It's a type of pine. It's a ponderosa pine.
Evergreen? Oh.
So if you go up in the hills
What about the horse?
around here, that's actually an elk.
I know.
So, all right. So look at these handsome guys.
I love that guy.
Right? Dateable. Maybe.
Oh
So we got Robert Hooke. All right, guys. I know they're pretty hot. Let's bring it down. So we got Robert Hooke. All of this information, I won't expect you guys to notice on the test. All right, these guys, it's just for fun. Robert Hooke was a British scientist. So back in the day, back in this time, 17th century, 18th century, being a scientist wasn't really a profession. You know what I mean? Like, it was actually pretty much for rich white dudes with time on their hands. So, these rich guys would buy a microscope, find something, throw it under there, see what they got. So Hooke's this guy, he thinks he just made the biggest discovery in the world. He put a slice of cork under a microscope, noticed what you guys noticed on that first slide, all the boxes. So he's actually the one who coined the term cells, because he thought that the little boxes looked like monks' rooms, which I guess are called cells. I don't know, I read